Back on the midday view here on ENC TV channel 43, 17 minutes to 3 o'clock. Now, the High Court in Gauteng has set aside several clauses of the 2018 mining charter. In fact, it was the High Court in Pretoria, the North Gauteng High Court. The chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources and Energy, Sahlulele Luzipo, says while it welcomes the judgment, it's concerned about the potential impact on the mining sector. Let's speak to Mr. Luzipo now to give us some insights from the parliamentary committee there. Mr. Luzipo, I know you are on your way. Currently, you've given us some time as you are traveling. But what are you concerned about as a Portfolio Committee? The Minerals Council of South Africa obviously has welcomed the ruling of the North Gauteng High Court in Pretoria last week. Black Business Council is not happy and they want government to appeal. What are you concerned about?
Look, first, let me say good afternoon to you, Dan, and the viewers at home. I think you will note in the statement we have said there is no one who can claim victory. The problem that you are having is the consequences of the ruling. As far as what I know, and I must also state that we have not met as a portfolio committee, but when we meet, it's one of those things that I think there will be high priority on the agenda to look at the impact. The first thing that you are having is that ruling says that not just the areas where there is no agreement are not enforceable. It says the entire mining charter is not enforceable because it is a policy, not a legislation. Now, you will understand that in most cases, relations and relationships among social partners are based on consensus. Now, what this says is that it can only be through regulation that you enforce what is, if possible, as far as transformation is concerned. And this is what we say that is going to be the basis of more instability in the industry, as it's going to be, is having impacts on mining communities, but generally on the entire agenda for transformation. But at the same time, it's the question of trust among social partners. Can they, after this ruling, be able to be confident that when they sit around the table, they can reach consensus, make compromises, and on the basis of that, ensure that there's compliance with what they would have reached an agreement on. And it's going to lead also to another debate, whether can you have a transformed business sector in this country without regulation. Whilst on the other side, there's a complaint that our labor market system is so over-regulated, including our investment issues. So on those bases, I think that is what we are raising concerns about. We are not saying there's something wrong. Obviously, we will welcome the judgment, but we think the judgment is now pitting social partners against each other. That what you have as a state power to regulate will be the only means, only options that you are having, not to continue to promote what we have always said. Please find solutions as social partners before you go through antagonistic processes. I think that's the concern we've raised.
Okay, so Mr. Luzipo, on that note, are you concerned that such a court ruling might end up leading government to enforce regulation rather than support charters like the mining charter, which, as you said, have been agreed by the partners and the various stakeholders in the sector?
Most definitely, that's the point we are raising, is that now you say I'm a regulator. I've been engaging with partners, social partners, in this case, business in the mining sector. And on the basis of our failure to agree on certain things, the ruling does not say the clauses or the areas where there's disagreement are unlawful or unconstitutional. It says that, as far as I've read for me, it says the mining charter is not enforceable. So it means the only way you can have something that can be enforced, it must be because it is not a legislation. And I'm saying that to me is going to create more tension in the sector, because now it will leave government with no option, but it must then say, well, that's what the court says. It says if you want to enforce something, regulate it. And I'm saying the industry is going to be panicking and say, no, there's too much regulation. Mining communities and even workers in general will be saying that the court also allows you to regulate. That's the point that we're concerned about.
Yeah. Now, in your consultations going forward, you said at the start that you haven't met as a portfolio committee, but when you do meet, you want this matter to be a priority on the agenda. Will you use the portfolio committee to engage with the South African Minerals Council, which has welcomed and is over the moon about this ruling in court in terms of the mining sector? Will you involve them in the consultation? Will you talk to the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy under Gwede Mantashe, which currently says as well it's still studying the judgment?
Look, obviously, we have got a duty and a responsibility to make sure that all these parties are able to interact together. But we will surely, amongst other things, to invite the department to provide on its side what then becomes the way forward. Yes, it might be necessary whether the department must appeal the outcome or it must do what the court says if it wants to enforce any legislation. In my view, I'm saying when that you reach a stage where as social partners you cannot agree and you only have the courts as the arbiters, it means then you run the risk of antagonistic relations. You must remember, it is not only the government that was making this, what was supporting or was making this application. There were many other partners that were interest parties on the application because of the impact that mining is making in society in general.
Okay, very briefly before I let you go, I know you're traveling, Mr. Luzipo, at this moment. When do you expect the portfolio committee to sit and meet where you're going to prioritize this whole matter?
Look, obviously we know Parliament is in recess now until probably the 1st of November, and on the first committee is surely post the elections. It's going to be one issue that will be on the agenda. Also subject and depending what could have been the developments between now and that time.
Okay, thank you very much and safe travels to you. Thank you for making time for us this hour here on the Midday View on ENCA. That's Mr. Sahlulele Luzipo, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources and Energy, raising some very valid points there around this whole issue of the mining charter. You don't want to see more regulation in the sector. The charter is supposed to be a document that everybody uses and welcomes, but a court has ruled that it is not forcible. You can't enforce it. Now, if you can't enforce it, what can you do to try